was at least tapping his doing, so that's fine.
Yeah.
But you got to roll with it. It's just a bit, too much. It's just like a bit annoying.
Yeah.
Could be a lot worse. But I did want to say thank you very much for coming in and allowing me to sort of speak with you today, because I know it's one thing that you're doing all the time, was that we briefly touched on that you're constantly just speaking, so I'm sure it gets exhausting to some point. But I just wanted to give, I guess, listeners and viewers an understanding of what it is like, because even from my point of view, I've tried not to do too much research into it to come sort of as a very much an amateur in this space. So do you want to give us a little bit of an insight into what hypnotherapy actually is?
So it's not what people think it is. It's nothing like the stage shows, which is purely for entertainment. You know, all the films when they have these bizarre dramas around somebody being hypnotized and doing these either incredible or disastrous things. It's nothing like that. It's a very gentle, relaxing, therapeutic approach where when the conscious mind is put to one side and those conscious, busy thoughts settle, we then have access to the deeper unconscious mind where all the habits, the old programs, the emotions, the behaviors that perhaps aren't helpful reside. Because from the moment we're born, we're constantly creating patterns. It's what allows us to function as human beings. And so we've got millions of programs stored in the unconscious mind. And in that relaxed state, we're allowed to access them because the conscious mind that stands in the way, the critical analytic mind, is quiet and reserved and waiting while the body's relaxing. So it has lots of benefits on a mental and physical and emotional level. Um, and we can access that to make the positive changes the client wants. So it's very safe. It gives the client back more control. It doesn't people worry about them losing control. Sorry, just let me.
Right.
The people worry about losing control when they're in hypnosis, and yet you're awake and you're aware. You can hear the whole time what the therapist is saying. And if the therapist was to say anything that was outside your values or your um, moral compass, then the unconscious mind is alerted. In the same way, when we're driving, we're often going into a hypnotic state. We're driving in trance. And actually, because we have a program running for driving the car, we actually then very quickly, with the movement of the car and the motion and things going past us, we go into a trance state where we forget. So everybody has an experience where they forget where they're going to or how they got there. And when we go in that trance state, the unconscious mind is actually driving the car. So you've created a program for it. It takes over. It drives the car for us. We're thinking about what we're going to have for dinner, what we're going to wear tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. And the moment then something happens, like somebody catches our attention on the side of the road or a car swerves in front of us, the conscious mind takes over. So it's always alert, always aware, and it drives the car for us, but the conscious mind is there waiting to take over if we need to take action. So it's a very safe process.
I remember, even just as you said that, I even remember myself thinking about hypnotists, not so much hypnotherapy. It's not something, a domain that I was super aware of, but I remember thinking about a hypnotist that it would, worry me that it's as if someone's breaking into the vault of my mind and I'm somehow now vulnerable to things. And it's not a
You
very,
find out all your secrets.
it's
It
not
doesn't
very,
work like that whatsoever. Its function is to give you back more control. So it accesses the unwanted, like I say, helpful patterns that we're running, and perhaps those patterns then trigger unhelpful or distressing emotions and unpleasant emotions. And so when we go into that therapeutic state of hypnosis, then the conscious mind is quiet. We go into the alpha, theta levels of relaxation and that mode where everything quietens down, the heart rate slowing down, the breathing's deepening, the body's relaxing, the muscles are loosening. And so the unconscious mind is open and absorbing the positive suggestions that the therapist gives it. Like I said, if we're to say anything outside your moral compass, it would be you're immediately alerted to it and you would just open your eyes. You can leave at any point. You're always in control. Um, but at the same time, you want to get a positive change. That's why you're there. And so you're aware of what they're saying, and that creative part of your mind is then absorbing those suggestions. And it's reaching down and into those, it switches off the cortisol that's racing through your body when you've got stress, and it taps into the release and the rise of endorphins and serotonin. So the body is really relaxed. And like I said, in that state, it's open to absorbing those beneficial suggestions, whether that's you sleep more deeply, you sleep for longer, you are more focused and disciplined when it comes to food choices, you have a calmer response rather than a reaction to something. Maybe you've got social anxiety and you triggered if you go somewhere and somebody asks you a question. When you've been in the hypnotic state and you've had suggestions that in those situations, and you've been able to see yourself, visualize yourself, and experience yourself through the guiding visualization and suggestions of the therapist, in that real life situation, you feel calmer. Your brain's already practiced it. It feels more natural and comfortable because we've created a new inner program.
Mm.
And so in those situations, your response is different than the old unpleasant reaction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so does that mean I'm coming to yourself or a hypnotherapist and I have an intention behind a specific pattern that I've recognized that isn't I'm not comfortable with? Or is this something that you come in, you're not sure exactly what sort of patterns that you're concerned with? Like how much does intention behind a session of hypnotherapy matter?
It doesn't always matter because the client doesn't always know the problem.
Mm,
So sometimes they'll make an appointment to address one thing, but when you talk to them, it's actually something else altogether that's driving that behavior. And so their intention may be that they want to achieve one thing, but actually driving that behavior is something at the back of it.
mm,
It might be insecurity, it might be fear, it might be lack of confidence, it might be the self belief and their ability to do certain things that's creating the behavior. So then we would address the key elements that are causing the problem. Sometimes the client, knows what the problem is, and just created bad habits, and so we start by changing those. So what somebody says they want isn't always
mm.
the driver underneath it. And I always try and get to, not, you don't have to go all the way back into somebody's history to find the problem, because what we want to do is sort the present day problem out. But actually, if there's a fear underneath it, then it's good to address that fear or the anxiety around it.
It sounds analogous to, in at least within the physiotherapy domain, a lot of people will come in with something like back pain, and very, very typical. 90% of the time, the issue is largely not going to be relocated towards the back itself. A lot of the time, it will be around the legs or the feet, or there'll be some other characteristic. They've come in for back pain issue, but
And that's a symptom.
there's a symptom
There's
exactly.
something else underneath it. And hypnosis is wonderful because a lot of the time people don't want to address uncomfortable emotions, but it's a very safe place to do it, and it's a softer place to access them, because we don't go in with hardcore suggestions that you're going to go from A to Z. In a moment, the brain learns through repetition and it feels safe when you do things in steps. So, a series of hypnotherapy sessions mean we start off gently and making suggestions that feel comfortable for the unconscious mind to start moving forward, releasing the old patterns and moving towards something that's more useful and helpful. And then over time, because they've seen those changes, they've, even after the first session, they feel relaxed and they feel lighter and they feel more positive because changes have already taken place. And it's not a quick flick of a switch and everything's sorted out, but over time, and it can be for some people, but over time and with a few sessions, the client starts to feel better and better and better, because the brain's learned gradually it's okay to let go of that fear and to feel safe and to feel calm in those situations.
How much of a, when at the beginning you sort of talked about it's nothing to do with the entertainment act of hypnosis. Is it using similar sort of techniques, the hypnotherapy to hypnosis? Is there quite a crossover, or do you find them to be like very, very separate sort of domains?
Okay, well, It's yes and no to that question. There can be. I did a whole course in stage hypnosis because I was intrigued myself to know the
Yeah.
difference. We use some of the same. You can put people in a relaxed state quite quickly, and we can use some of the same techniques to use. It might be a hand drop, or um, maybe just opening, closing the eyelids, and people go into a relaxed state quite quickly. But stage hypnosis is very different. The hypnotist on the stage looks around the audience and finds the most suggestible. Through a series of questioning and little exercises, they can then bring onto stage what they feel is the most suggestible people in the audience.
Right.
Because some of the people won't have complied, and some of the people will be going straight into it. They bring those on stage, and then they'll do some more tests with them, and then they'll choose the ones that are most suggestible. You'll see the other people, maybe 3 or 4 in a row with their heads dropped down, and then they're not being used because he's working with the most suggestible, the ones that will go along and comply.
Mm.
Because behind that, there's also people who want attention. There's also people who don't want to let the hypnotist down and don't want to look stupid on stage. And so people tend to be acquiescing and going along
Mm.
with things that in day-to-day life that they wouldn't. Because, if you were to walk down the street and somebody clicked the fingers and said sleep, not many people would drop their head and go into a deep hypnotic state and be asleep and start doing whatever the hypnotist has asked them to do. Well, most of us would turn around and say, "What?"
Yeah.
Or be
Yeah.
shocked or jump. We wouldn't comply that easily. So I'm not saying it's completely set up, but people are more open to compliance
When there's
in
social
that
pressures
situation when
and
that social press is there, and they're still using the creative and imaginative part of the mind to go along with these things, um, and they've allowed themselves to relax in that situation, but they're also complying. Everybody knows what they're doing. Everybody in hypnosis knows what they're doing.
and do you find that the amount of how suggestible I guess someone is, um, does that vary massively when you have people come in? Are you picking up very quickly how suggestible they are, how sort of I guess resistant they are as well? Does that make a big impact as to like how you would move forward in the session?
Not really when we come to do in with therapy, because it really doesn't matter. Um, it's just, we're all different, aren't we? So some people respond to things differently than others do.
Because I think that's an important point because I feel like a lot of people with hypnotherapy, again, even in my own mind, there's a part of me that would think, well, if this person's just going to hypnotize me, maybe I want to try and resist. I'm not sure. I feel very comfortable about, exactly what it means. So breaking apart that as you're going, it doesn't matter if you're suggestible or not, right? You're not trying to crack open the mind and sort of break it apart.
No, not at all. And actually, you don't need somebody to be in a very deep hypnotic trance to get the result that they want. I think when people try and control the sessions because they feel that the therapist is going to access their deepest secrets or find something out about them, or they might talk about something that they didn't intend to, then they're trying to control the session, and they're standing in their own way of getting the result that they want. Whereas the truth is, the therapist can't control the client in any shape or form. At any point, you can open your eyes. You always know what's happening. Your unconscious mind is always alert. Like I gave with the driving example, your unconscious mind is always alert and would alert your conscious mind if I was to say anything outside, say, somebody's moral boundaries.
Mm.
And so there's nothing you would say without knowing that you're saying it. And so standing in your own way is counterproductive. So um, if people are holding on and you can tell because the body's not relaxing, then there's just different ways of helping them relax. The relaxation process, the question you asked before, is it very different? So those techniques are used on stage, those very quick, fast techniques. When we do therapy, it's not just about changing the programming in the mind, it's also about releasing tension in the body so that the body also recognizes and reaps the benefits through the breath, through the heart rate, through the blood pressure of doing hypnosis. And so when we're doing hypnotherapy, we tend to do a longer, more relaxing, what we call an induction or relaxation process with a deepener. So the person can very gently over time. And it might be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, but over time, just gently unfold and loosen and soften and relax, because that has massive benefits on the body as well.
Just creating that sort of
Yeah.
space of safety as well for
Safety.
the mind
Yeah,
and
it's
body.
gentle, it's slow. They know what's happening, but they're feeling relaxed. You can tell by the involuntary muscle jerks that the person's relaxing, and those are great signs because firstly, they're trusting the process. Secondly, you know where they're going mentally, that they're letting those busy beta thoughts just quieten down, and they're going into that theta alpha state where that change work can happen. And so that those nice long slow relaxations have a benefit over and above the mental work that you're going to do with them. So if somebody's got a problem with anxiety or sleep, those are really enjoyable things to do. When they go to bed at night, they can listen to the programs and the body completely unwinds and relaxes, which means that then they go into a deeper sleep with a quieter mind, and they probably sleep longer and more deeply.
Just talk a little bit more about you just mentioned some recordings there. So, do you specifically have recordings for individual issues, or is it very much person to person type recordings? How does that actually work for someone? Yeah, I'm guessing this is something that they can essentially access themselves at any time to try and bring on that same state of relaxation and safety that you've walked through it with them. Is that again, is that like a personalized thing per person?
Yes, so since I started using hypnotherapy, I've always recorded with every client what we're doing in the session. Nothing is ever pre-recorded, because for me, that's too generic. You might as well go to, in the old days, W.H. Smith used to sell recording CDs and you bought them off the shelf. And people enjoyed them and they got relaxation from them. But they didn't usually get any therapeutic change because it's not personal. It's not your details in it. It's not, it's not about you. And you've not got that connection with the therapist, which is also an important part of the relationship and the progress that you make. Um, and so I always record every single session as I do it with the client, and it's got all their personal details that we talked about, because the session is made up of the conversation that we've just had and the notes that I've just made. I'm very fortunate. I remember most things for for a long time, so I don't have to look at my notes. But I will always do a different relaxation every single time, because there might be some times where a body relaxation really does it for them. Another time it might be a visualization that really helps them. People have different ways of relaxing, um, and so I try and always do a different style, or bring in different elements into the relaxation process. And then the suggestions that follow, I might use a metaphor. I've got a million stories in my head, um, direct suggestions, maybe bring in an NLP technique. You might want somebody to have an anchoring technique, for instance. So within the hypnosis, I might ask them to, for example, bring the thumb and finger together, or even imagine bringing the thumb and finger together, squeezing it, taking a nice deep breath, feeling everything relax and loosen, and feeling that sense of calm. So in the future, they can do that in a situation where they felt anxious, and they'd re-experience that same release, that same calm,
Yeah.
and access that anytime. So you can bring into the hypnosis anything you want after that based on the conversation. So I never ever pre-record.
Rinse and repeat,
Yeah.
some generic type
No,
thing.
no, I
And
don't think it has any benefit.
and when you're sort of going through with someone or initially getting to know someone, again, I'm thinking from the physio point of view, there's at least some level of here's a basic overall assessment that I'll do based on just their movement and then what their overall body's looking like, just to give me a sense of, even if they're coming in with a shoulder pain or a back pain, is there something else that I'm wanting to gauge about their whole body and the history as well, and match those things together before I just simply go to an area that they're interested in. Is there again sort of a system that you follow from the assessment point of view, or is it really different per person?
Um, Gosh, so I suppose it's different for everybody, and yet there is a process that I follow. Um, so if it's a first session, I will I ask them to fill in a form, and I use that form for the basis of my further questioning and discovery. Okay, so we'll talk through the things that they've highlighted or circled, and I'll find what's linked and what's not linked. Because sometimes people, they put everything down, but it's not what they came for. And so I want to focus on what they came for. And sometimes that same form will highlight things that they've not mentioned, but actually is part of the problem. And it's important we address it. So we'll look at that. We'll talk about the issues that they've raised. I'll do some further questioning and then decide a way forward. And it might be that we look at the underlying symptoms, like we discussed before, or we might go straight to the symptom. So, say somebody came for smoking cessation or vaping, is the most common one these days, um, then we would go straight to the problem, which is to quit vaping or quit smoking. And that's really the only one we do in one session. Um, if it was for weight loss, that's very different because, okay, they want to break a habit, which might be binging or eating sweet foods. But at the end of the day, they still have to. Smoking's very black and white, isn't it? You either do it or you don't do it. Whereas we've still got to eat, we've still got to make those choices, we've still got to go shopping, we've got social occasions, and we embrace eating together. It's very different. Whereas there's a stigma now with smoking and vaping. So we also look at the drivers underneath the need to comfort eat or binge, um, and that might be, there might be lots of reasons for that. It might be a learned behavior, from the past. It might be a parent's the way the parent ate. It might be um, they were always told they had to finish everything. They might be comfort eating because in that moment they're either self-sabotaging or they're doing it to feel that they deserve it or to feel better. So there can be lots of other reasons underneath why somebody is eating, and it's a very different. It might be a habit, but it's a very different behaviour with emotional things underneath it supporting the behaviour, and we need to address those first. It might be, going back to smoking, somebody might come to stop smoking, but actually they've got a very, very stressful situation going on. They've just uh, they're about to lose the company, or they're in the middle of a divorce, or they've just had a bereavement. I will often suggest that we postpone the session and we do it another time. And I might just do if they want to, I might just do a session with them to soothe whatever is going on at that time to help them with the anxiety around it, and ask them to come back another time, maybe 2 or 3 months down the line when things are a bit quieter, because I don't think they will be successful.
So yeah, you have to be like if there's a hierarchy of problems, you sort of need to have at least some space for a particular habit that you're interested in to fix. If there's other things going on, then it might be just too
It's too much,
too
yeah.
too
And
much.
my judgment might be that they will fail, that they'll need it as a crutch in the days ahead. And I think the best call is not to do it and let them come back. Just when things are quieting down a bit, come back, and then we'll address it at that time. So, if it was an ongoing problem, but they think that maybe quitting smoking or some other behavior would actually make them feel more in control of life and feel more empowered by doing so, then I might suggest we do another session beforehand just to support their stress, anxiety, and then they can listen to that for a week, and then we'll do this whatever it is, the smoking, the cannabis, the gambling, whatever. We'll address that.
And when someone is giving, you've gone through the session and you've done that recording for them as well. How often are they meant to listen to it to continue to maintain or receive the benefit?
So with something like that, for example, you've either stopped or you've not stopped. I would say try and listen to it every day or every other day for about 3 weeks. Get that 21 days or even 28 days
Yeah.
under your belt, and then tail it off. If you were going, say, on a stag do and you think that everybody's going to try and tempt you again, listen to your program. You've got it now. We record on the phone, so you've got your program. Listen to it on the flight. Give yourself that support, so you've got more discipline and more motivation to stay stopped. Um, if it was for weight loss, then sometimes people listen to the programs for several months after, but tailor them off. Um, if they were gonna say on holiday on a cruise and they might just want that bit more support, I'd say listen to your programs, because sometimes situations mean that you're willpower isn't quite as strong as it would be. And so you need that bit of support, but you've got your programs to listen to, and it's always good to have them. I have had people who continue to listen to them years after. I've got clients that return all the time, and they say, I still listen to the programs. One guy came to me and said, I saw you 18 years ago. I've still got your CDs, and I still listen to them sometimes.
All CDs.
Yeah. And somebody contacted me once and said, I saw you many, many years ago to stop smoking. I stopped smoking, but I use a CD because it relaxed me so much every Sunday night so I could face Monday mornings. And we've moved house, can't find it. Can you do me another smoking cessation CD? And I said, well, first, I can't do it on CD. But secondly, um, are you smoking? And he said, no, I've never smoked since. So I said, well, why don't I just do you a program to support you on Sunday night so you feel confident and relaxed and capable Monday mornings? And so that's what we did.
Nice. So you can sort of build it into a bit of a schedule like you would for, exercise or a walk or whatever it
Absolutely.
might be, sort of just a grounding period, some little thing that you can add into as a way to, yeah, whether it be reset the mind, produce a bit of calm,
Yeah.
whether it be your own bit of meditation, it's just another piece that you can add to the layer of tools just to help you feel good about what's going on in the world and what's going on for your week. How did you get into hypnotherapy? Where did this all start?
So, okay, a bit of a long story, but a good story, I think. So, um, I met somebody who told me about self hypnosis, and I'd always been into meditation and yoga. And so I did a course on self hypnosis. And I'd also, at the time, I'd just finished a course in counseling. And so I decided to combine them because I thought that everything is driven through the unconscious mind, that you can counsel people, but actually, a lot of those problems and the reactions to what's going on in life is because of the programs that they're running unconsciously. So it would be helpful to teach them some self hypnosis. Um, and then, so I was doing that for a while around working. I was a medical rep for a while. And then I bought a place in Wales, a hotel at the bottom of Snowdon, and I was running that. And in the quiet times, we have, 5 months quiet time out of season, I would go back and do my therapy. But I was on holiday in Goa, and there was a guy and a girl that came to, much, much younger than myself and my partner then. And they came to the hotel, and she was lovely, looked really nice and pretty. And this is very judgmental. And her partner looked like a big thug. And I was actually quite terrified of him. And I avoided wherever they sat around the pool. I sort of avoided and sat somewhere else. Anyway, one morning I got up about 4:30. I decided to go and meditate on the beach. And I went past the pool, through the garden, opened the gate, and along the sand, because the hotel was on the beach, it was beautiful. Along the sand, there was a big row of trees. Beyond that was some more beach and the sea. And as I walked towards these trees, this pack of wild dogs came out of them and started running towards me, barking. And I froze. I was absolutely terrified. And I looked back, I knew I wouldn't get back in time. And I knew there was no point running through the trees. And then all of a sudden, from the gate, this guy came running out, screaming with a big um, plank in his hand towards the dogs. And they all turned and they all ran off. And I was like, oh my God, wow, you are. Oh my God. Thank you, you saved my life. And I said, but what the hell are you doing here at 4:30? He says, I come out every morning to meditate and sit on the beach. I'm like, okay, big lesson in judgment. Okay. So, of course, we started talking and we walked to the beach and we decided to walk because the sea was out. We decided to walk and we walked for 3 hours talking. And he told me his backstory. And his backstory was that he had grown up and had a hard time and he'd ended up in Borstal and got in with bad people. And then I think he went to prison and he met somebody they were sharing a room, that was a hypnotherapist and did hypnotherapy with him. And he said it completely changed his life. Um, and so he came out and continued to do hypnotherapy, and then started a business up, got his life on track, had this really successful business, and had met this beautiful girl that he was with. And by the time we got back, I mean, I was so blown over with his story and I was so humbled and also so ashamed of my judgment. Got back, my partner and his partner were the only people sat in the dining room, wondering where the hell we'd gone. Thought we'd run off with each other. And breakfast had finished. Well, no, I hadn't quite finished, but anyway. And so from that point on, we spent every minute with them. We had a fantastic time. We even, when we came back to the wedding, we even met up and they stayed at the hotel, and the story goes on. But that's how I got into it, because the first thing I did when I got back was apply and went on a course to train as a hypnotherapist. And I trained for a year. Then I went to London, did 3 months with an American guy there. And then I went to Scotland about 4 years later and did about, I think it was over 9 months, once a month with a guy in Scotland, because I wanted to learn lots of different ways of doing it as much as I could. So I had lots of tools in my box. And then since then, I've done other trainings with other things. So we do CBT, EFT. Um,
What's CBT and
so
EFT?
cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay, yeah,
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 yeah.
CBT.
And
Sorry.
EFT, emotional freedom technique, is where we use the meridian points and tap on the meridian upper body points, whilst focus on the problem, which
Mhm.
I think is absolutely fantastic. It's a very non-invasive process, like hypnotherapy. It's very non-invasive, and I've seen great things happen using it. So I try to combine as much as I can.
Very cool story. I love the perspective shift that would have occurred straight away from that. Whoa, I went that wrong.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
very
yeah.
cool moment. And even just going back just a little bit again, you sort of said that, before even that started, you got into self hypnosis as
Yeah.
well. Was there a reason why you originally were trying to get into self hypnosis
Um,
for self? Because
yes.
obviously that's some sort of thing that you're trying to do with
Okay.
yourself, right?
So part of the reason I got into it, so there is a further backstory. So it does say this on my website. So yeah, how much you're going to. So I wasn't brought up by my mum. My mum disappeared when I was 2. I used to see once a month on a Sunday for about 4 hours, and then when I was about 9, and in the meantime, I used to quite happily collect caterpillars, and sometimes they get out, they'd be crawling on the ceiling. I was brought up by my grandparents, and anyway, one day I was at a friend's house on the windowsill. There was a caterpillar and it started moving and wriggling. And then all of a sudden the side burst open and all these tiny little white, what we thought were baby caterpillars, were coming out and crawling on the windowsill. And we were like absolute awe. Oh my goodness, it's had babies. Me and my friend were mesmerized. And then the door opened. My friend's mum came in and she nearly vomited. She says, "Oh my God, I forgot to move it. It's that dead caterpillar. I forgot to move it. A fly's laid eggs in it. Those are maggots crawling out." And we went from awe to complete revulsion,
Yeah,
as you can imagine.
yeah, yeah.
And then a few days later, I remember walking, because there was a field between my house and her house, walking through the field and had flip flops on. And I looked down, and as my flip flop touched the floor, my heel came up. A circle came out the grass, a green round circle, and I knew it was a caterpillar, and it landed on the heel of my flip flop, and the reflex wasn't fast enough to stop my foot squashing it, and I had this dead caterpillar all over my heel. And I remember jumping round in the field screaming, because all I could see
Is
was the maggots
mm,
crawling out of the caterpillar. And then it must have been later that month, and I went outside and came back in, and my mum was just packing up and leaving. She used to have tea with us and then go, and then we'd see her a month later. And so she was packing up, and I came in, and she looked at me and she said, "What's that on your dress?" And as I looked down, I can still see it was a black dress with little flowers all over. And I looked down, and there was one of those stick caterpillars doing somersaults on my dress. And I completely freaked. I went hysterical. I threw up. I was screaming and crying. And she must have flicked it onto the fire guard, as we had then. And I saw it doing the same thing. And the same thing happened. And she slapped me across her face. And I calmed down. And that was the first time in my life I remember putting us to bed. And she stayed and put us to bed. So from that point onwards, every time I saw a caterpillar, I had that same reaction. And it went on and on, and it got worse because you get older and it's more embarrassing. But every time I saw one, I would vomit, I'd go hysterical, I couldn't stop crying. And it could take 2 days to calm down, because then I dream about them falling on me. And I had the same thing would happen. It'd go on. And I'd be here all day if I tell you some terrible situations that I've been in with caterpillars when that's happened. One of them being in Africa on a balloon flight one morning, stopping in the basket, 12 people in a trestle table having champagne breakfast. I look down, see one on the chair, and jump up screaming, tip the whole table, all the champagne and breakfast over everywhere, and shoot off down the Masmai. Was it Massamari? Um, the park. Can't think right now. But
My geography is terrible, so I can't
yeah,
tell
so
either.
I was running, and they came after me in this van and brought me back. I had to be taken back separately to everybody else whose breakfast and whose trip I'd ruined. So that was one of them. But I've had loads of situations like that. And I've been to see lots of therapists as I got older, but nobody had helped me get over the fear. And I just thought I'd live my life as carrying with the fear of caterpillars. And I got to the point where I had to have a coat on. Somebody had to check my coat if I was outside in greenery. If I was in a walking down with trees, I'd have to have an umbrella over me and things like that. It got really extreme.
Mm.
And I couldn't find anybody. I went to different hypnotherapists and nobody was able to stop it. And part of it was because I think now nobody explained to me what hypnosis is and what it isn't, and what I would feel like. And that just because I would be lying there and I could think and I could hear and I could move and I could cough and sneeze and scratch and everything else and open my eyes, that I was in hypnosis. So the whole time I would be lying there thinking, well, I'm not in hypnosis, nothing's happening, it won't be working. Whereas with every client, I always explain what it is and what it isn't. And I think that is really useful. Then they understand that and they can go with the process.
How
So
important
everything
is
we've
that as
talked
well?
about, massively important, I think, because otherwise people would do what I did and would reject all the suggestions because I think, well, I'm not being hypnotized, you're just talking to me. And so I always had that belief and nothing works. So my reason for doing self-hypnosis was to get over my caterpillar phobia because I'd just had that experience in Africa and had lots more before that.
It's amazing to think as well that the original framing of that experience was you in awe of this event going on, of what was maggots crawling out, but at the time, unbeknownst to that little bit of information, you were enjoying that experience
Yeah,
originally, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
how fast it is that that can change based on
yeah.
others' reactions. Whilst I'm guessing you were fairly young,
Yeah,
sorry at
I
the
was
time.
about 9, so
Right?
you were very influenced, and I remember going
Mm.
from wonder to absolute terror and disgust. Yeah,
Which is another occasionally I'll hear about this or see reels or whatever, and just it's the classic, if a kid falls over, a young kid falls over, and they'll obviously look to their parents for reassurance as to
yeah,
what's just happened. And if you give a certain reaction, the kid will sort of almost mimic. If you go, "Oh no," like
yeah,
it'll sort of mimic like, "Oh, I must be hurt." And if you go, "Ha ha," and then it'll just be like, "Yeah." And so it's very funny to think that those tiny little interactions can also be. It's important how we think about framing certain incidents, and maggots crawling out of a caterpillar can be disgusting, but it's also, as you originally felt, it's kind of awe-inspiring at the same time.
yeah. But
um,
what I learned is that so the reaction came, and I learned this with my clients. The reaction came eventually from that disgust to it being on my own heel and having that squashed, possibly with covered with wasn't it was alive, but with full of maggots because we have a natural disgust for maggots, don't we? Even though they're quite helpful. And then I became the little girl wanting a mum to put her to bed, wanting something I'd never got all my life.
mm,
So everything after that was an emotional longing of a 9-year-old girl to get something that she wanted or needed. And so even as an adult, I was still having that reaction, even though I consciously knew, because other therapists would say, well, let's go back to the time when, you were eaten by a caterpillar or you were bitten by a caterpillar, because you can get stung by them and have an anaphylactic shock. But so they were always looking for one thing that happened that caused the fear. And I knew there was no one thing that happened. But to me, it was quite logical that these things happened, but I didn't realize it was because of that, that the child in me wanting something, even though as an adult, that was having the reaction. So every time I saw a caterpillar, I was a 9-year-old
mm.
wanting the emotional love and comfort and support of my mum.
Were you when again in your adult life, when you were confronted with the caterpillars and have those reactions, the physical or visual experience of that, did you feel as if you were transported back? Like,
No,
what's the experience like?
no, never. It was just blind emotion, fear, terror. And like I said, it was, I now know it was a 9-year-old wanting something. I had that reaction because I was wanting to get something in that moment that obviously I couldn't get. And so until I learned that, I was having that reaction over and over again. And so another therapist trying to find one thing that terrified me just didn't exist. And so I wasn't getting the treatment over and above the fact that nobody explained what it was and what it wasn't. So it was unsuccessful. So I needed to train myself to find all this and go through the psychotherapy of it and to find out psychologically what's going on, because I'm constantly reading about the brain and how the brain works. Um, I understood that actually it doesn't have to be one event. It can be a series of events. I see so many people with learnt behaviour from the parents, especially things like heights, spiders, all those sort of things. They learnt behaviours. Um, and so, realising that it doesn't have to be one thing that causes a problem. It can just be a series of small things over time that create a big problem for somebody. It might be confidence, just something small happened, and then something small happened, and then something else, but the layers and layers and layers, and then you've got a bigger problem. So all those experiences I had really set me up to be able to help my clients understand that actually deeper down there might be something else, and we don't always have to go and find what it is. We just have to treat what's going on in the moment.
So were you able to largely help yourself again through the self hypnosis? And then the second part to that is, if there were to be a caterpillar in the room right now, how would you react?
Okay, so I treated myself through self-hypnosis and EFT. So a combination of those, I think, completely got me over it. But obviously, it's much faster to do hypnotherapy with a client than teach them self
Mm.
hypnosis, and it's harder because you don't want to go into those uncomfortable emotions. Um, so what I realised is that over time, I was having less of a reaction to them and more of a chosen response. I realised that everybody has a window that you can take control of things. You can either go, say left is panic and right is the response you want, a calm response. That we have a window, and if you take control in that window, depending on what you say to yourself, because our own self-talk is absolutely 100% important to our success in things, and focus on the breath, um, and purposely relax your body, then in that moment, you don't have to go into panic. You can choose a different response. And when the brain learns that each time you choose a different response over time, it doesn't have the old reaction anymore, because what's the point?
Mm.
It knows that you're safe. So now, if I see a caterpillar, I can just notice the caterpillar and walk away. I won't ever kill it. Um, I used to be able to spot them hanging on a thread from a tree from about 500 yards, but because I could see the
Yeah.
movement of them. But so a few weeks ago, I was sat here, and I get my, I use headphones, and I use my iPad for music, and I was talking into the client's phone, and I was just about to change the music on my iPad to music of waves. That was significant at the time, and I saw a caterpillar crawl over the top of my iPad. It's only a small one, and down across it, diagonally down, and in the old days, that would have been the end. I would have probably died. But this time, I just got a business card that's on the side there, and I just moved it about slowly with the corner of it until the end of the session. And then when my client had opened their eyes, I said, just excuse me for a moment. And I put it on the business card, went outside and flicked it over next door's garden because it's not eating my leaves. and and came back in and just started laughing and told her. And she was like, "Oh, I hate caterpillars." So, but I was absolutely fine
Mm.
and didn't even think about it.
It's a very nice, it's a very nice place to be in compared to where you've been at as well. So,
Oh gosh,
mm,
absolutely.
yeah,
It's so empowering. Now, I'm an avid gardener,
mm.
and I don't think twice about going under and in a bush to, get the bindweed that's growing over the back of the wall at the back, things like that, or pick some weeds out or anything. It doesn't even occur to me anymore. Whereas in the past, there was no way I would have done that. Even if I'd been in a spacesuit, I wouldn't have done it. But now I just do that and it's fine.
And it's amazing to think as well, because as you said before, you went to many different hypnotherapists, and I'm sure maybe other types of therapy as well, and it didn't work. So I'm sure at some points it would have felt like this will never. I think you even said that this will never change. This is it. This is my life. I just have to circulate my life around avoiding caterpillars. So that must be a
It's
lot of control back in the life.
absolutely, yeah, you've hit the nail on the head, and that's what I always say to clients. It's not, you don't have to like them. I actually don't like them. I think they're revulsive. You don't have to like them, but you just have to remain in control. It's about how you feel. So if you can be calm and control in that situation and have a calmer response to them, more appropriate response, just walk away or whatever. If you see the spider, it's just a spider. It's got its own job to do, So if you can just walk away from the spider or put a glass over it and take it outside or call somebody else to move it for you, that's all you need. But you can get on with your day. You're not in a state, you're not terrified, you've not had this big reaction. You know, um, Sometimes the big reaction is the only time other people give us attention.
Mm,
I've seen this with fear of dentists sometimes in adults. They have this big fear, and really it's the only time somebody really nurtures them and spends time, I'll come with you, I'll look after you. We'll go for coffee after, or you'll say to a child, oh, be really relaxed and go to the dentist, be a good boy, and then we'll go for McDonald's after, or we'll go and get this toy. We're rewarded for having the fear and we get looked after. So people find it hard to let go of the fear sometimes because it's the only time they get that full attention, the spotlight's on them. Um, when you have the reaction I had when you're vomiting, it's not the attention you want. I wanted something emotional, but not that type of attention. So having fears really helps me understand how people feel in different situations, and that we have we call it a secondary positive intention behind the
mm.
behavior. It's the unconscious mind trying to get us something that we need from long ago or even the present day, but we don't get it in normal ways.
Yeah, it's very, very hard to sometimes pinpoint what those secondary or even
Absolutely.
primary motivations are without
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
giving a lot of
yeah.
space and time and silence, I would say, to a lot of these things. With the types of people that you see come in, so obviously fears is going to be a big one as well. Are there sort of, and smoking cessation, weight loss, those are sort of obvious symptoms that people go, look, I want to change something about my life, and I feel like there's something about the patterns that I've built around my life that I can't seem to change, and so this might be a good route. What are the common types of symptoms that people tend to come in with? Again, we've already mentioned smoking cessation, weight loss, and some fears. Are they the most common, or is there a slew of
No,
others that
they're
you do
not
see?
actually. The most common is anxiety, panic attacks, dealing with stress. And underneath a lot of people's other problems that they come in with, say weight loss um, or sleep, might be anxiety. So, anxiety means that they're managing the day to day life through eating because it helps them, it comforts them in that moment. They're dealing with the anxiety. Somebody might not be sleeping well because they tense when they go to bed. The body's full of cortisol and adrenaline. They're not sleeping properly. They wake up, they don't go back to sleep, which is more common than just general insomnia, where somebody struggles to go to sleep. And so anxiety is the biggest one that we deal with. Confidence is also lots of areas around confidence that we deal with. Social anxiety. Since COVID, see a lot more children from the age of 5 all the way through to teenage young people with anxiety and confidence issues. That's become massive now. Um, I think the variety that we see in the practice room is so huge. It covers absolutely everything. So people with driving phobias, people with stomach problems, IBS, Crohn's, managing all those sorts of things, migraines, pain, chronic pain. Um, it's on the spot. It's hard to think, but I've
Yeah.
seen so many interesting. Fertility is a big one, or infertility. So there's lots of research to show that hypnosis is very effective with infertility.
Wow.
And an example would be, so if I was to ask you to think of your most favorite food, and to visualize it, to then smell it, to imagine the texture of it, the color of it, the taste of it, and you were chewing it, then you would start to release saliva.
Hmm.
Saliva glands respond. If a camera was in your stomach, then you'd see that digestive juices are being released and bile and everything else. So, in the same way, when we use visualization for IBS and for fertility, the body responds in the same way.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so I've had lots and lots of clients, whether they've got general infertility or just struggling to get pregnant, or they're going through IVF, then get pregnant or are successful.
Is that people are ruminating about certain thoughts or images that they're not totally aware of that create these sort of bodily changes, or is it something completely different?
It can be both. It can be a mental block, or belief that, they're not in. So it can be an unconscious belief that maybe life's too busy to get pregnant, or they can't afford it, or they're just not ready for it, or they don't want to make a mistake like the parents did, or it might be a problem in the body, a physical problem. And so, but look, there's lots of research around it to show that
For both men and women, I assume.
I've never actually worked with a man,
Okay.
but I've always worked with the women. So, but I don't believe if a man ever came, I don't believe that we wouldn't be able to help men, because it would work in the same way. The body responds in the same way. So hopefully, you could maybe increase the sperm count if it was that. But I've not actually, I can't say I worked with anybody. Um, but I have worked with lots and lots of women. And in the UK, we used to have 3 IBS clinics, hypnotherapy IBS clinics. Because of funding, two's closed down. We've got one, luckily, at Wythenshawe here. They do 12 sessions. Um, I usually aim to do about 6 because I've got longer time with clients. But IBS is, it's used a lot for, hypnotherapy is used a lot for
Very
IBS.
surprising. Yeah, I didn't know about IBS being a potential
Yeah.
for coming in, because that I
Yeah.
think that's one of the hard things in my mind as well, is knowing when it's worthwhile seeking out something. So again, looking back at the physiotherapy, it's pretty straightforward. Most people come in when it's just too painful in a particular body part, and they go, "All right, this is painful enough now for me to do something about
Yeah.
it." And thinking about my own, I was trying to think on the way in. I was like, if I was to do hypnotherapy at some point, like, what's something that would be good? And I was like, as a basic one, I do something where I always am.
No bite.
I don't
Uh,
buy as much. Sometimes I will, but I'm always at least just picking. If
Picky.
I'm thinking,
Yeah.
basically, that's usually what I'm doing. And it's always been one of those few things I've been like, that would be a nice habit to sort
Yeah.
of swap out. So, but I would never normally think, oh, I should go to hypnotherapy,
Yeah.
or I should seek out someone. In my head, I'm like, I just need to stop
Yeah.
doing it, essentially. How does one know when they should seek out something like this? Because again, it's so many different things that might be going on in someone's life, and it's very obvious when, oh, my knee's just gotten so sore, I need to seek someone out. But something like, again, whether it be nail biting or something to that degree, or hair chewing, things like that.
Things like that, hair. Well, it can be hair chewing, it can be hair pulling, eyebrow pulling. People pick skin off, they pick eyelashes out, they pick hairbrow out, they bite the lip, chew the lip, they make noises, all those things. And like you said, it can be, like I say, scratching skin. It can be picking fingers, biting fingers, the skin around them. My my guide would be, how much does it bother you? If it's causing you a problem. So, say you change jobs and you had to be in a situation where you're doing a lot of writing, people looking at hands, or hands, doing a lot of handshakes all the time, you might become more conscious of them. You might think, oh, they don't look as good as they could be, my nails or my fingers. Um, or it's starting to really get sore or irritate me. That's the point you would do it. If it's not bothering you, you might think, well, if you had all the time and money in the world, you might address all these things. But, given time and money come into it, then I'd say, if it's causing you a problem, address it. I see so many people that, say, oh, my wife doesn't fly anymore because she doesn't like to travel. She's scared of flying. Well, why isn't she doing anything about it? I see loads of people with fear of flying, and they're all flying,
Mm.
quite comfortably. Fear of bridges, fear of driving, so there's all those things. Even the IBS, why have the symptoms when, Mr. Warwell, who ran the gastro clinic in Wythenshawe for years, he's just retired. He's written lots of papers on it, so why? struggle with a problem, if you could make life easier, to um, use hypnotherapy, because that's an instance where you would use the programs ongoing. And the example you gave before about, the gym, I always say to people, you know, you wouldn't go to the gym once and expect to get fit and then not go again, or go to the gym, get fit, and then just stop going.
Mm,
You've got to maintain the progress that you've made by keep repeating what you've done to get there. And so if listening to the programs is effective, then every now and again, give yourself a boost. We all get up every day and we make sure that we're ready for the day, hopefully physically, showering, cleaning our teeth, doing our hair, choosing the clothes you wear. And yet, how many people prepare themselves mentally for the day?
mm.
And so, if listening to your program the night before, or sometimes do short booster ones so people can listen to them first thing in the morning, so they don't have to listen to the long one. And so, put your short booster on, get yourself ready for the day so you're mentally prepared. You feel empowered, you're feeling calm, you're feeling confident, you're feeling resilient. You can tap into your own capabilities and capacities that in the past you would have struggled to do.
You've also mentioned that you've done meditation, yoga, and you've sort of practiced those pieces for some time. How do they influence your hypnotherapy? Do they play a part in sort of how you structure things or talk about things, or are they just something that you do for yourself?
Well, I've enjoyed yoga long before I got into any of this, and meditation. I was really surprised when I started doing hypnosis um, how much hypnosis feels like a deep meditation. Although we use very different parts of the brain, it's a different part of the brain, but it feels like you're in a deep meditation. So that appealed to me, because I love doing meditation. I love teaching meditation. I think it has so many benefits as well, but in different ways. And the difference at the time is that in hypnosis, we say your body's relaxing, your mind's relaxing, and you might be aware of your own thoughts coming in, because we think in machines. People think that when you do hypnosis, it's like having a general anesthetic, you're completely out of it. And it's not like that. You'll still have your own thoughts coming in. And so your own thoughts come in. At the same time, we don't push those away, but you can hear my voice in the background, and that's fine. Whereas when we're doing, so my voice would be the focus, but your own thoughts are coming in. And it's okay to have your own thoughts, because when you stop listening to me and you start to daydream, you drift off on your own thoughts, you go into a daydream state, that creative state, and you start to relax even further. That's where you want to be in hypnosis. Whereas in meditation, you might have the mantra as your focus, or your breath your focus. When thoughts come in, we come we move away from the thoughts, we come back to the focus. Where if we go back to hypnosis or hypnotherapy, we let go of my voice and you drift off on your own thoughts. So it's the reverse. It feels the same, but we're doing the reverse of in meditation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you're drifting back to your thoughts rather than back towards
Yes.
the
Yeah.
attention of your voice,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is
It doesn't
supposed to
matter.
be.
I'm talking to the unconscious. I'm not talking to your conscious mind. Your conscious mind doesn't need to be involved and listening intently whatsoever. I want you to start daydreaming about the changes you're going to make, and just let thoughts drift in if they need to, because they're the ones that take you off into that daydream state. And so when we do meditation, it's like I say, we focus, we come back, we let go of the thoughts, come back to the breath, the mantra, whatever.
Do you find that they? It sounds like they work in tandem fairly well.
Yes.
Do you find, again, for a lot of people that come in? I mean, again, even from the physio standpoint, I have many clients that will come through, and they will describe issues going on in their lives and just general chaos typically going on for a lot of people. So I'm aware that exercise is one form of meditation as well. I'm aware of meditation being a fantastic form of meditation, but they hit different levels of integration across the emotional reptilian brain and then your
Yeah.
frontal cortex and everything else at that point. So I'm always interested to know, like, the interaction between these. I would imagine it's sometimes difficult to know at what level of the brain is someone going to best receive or make whatever change that they're after. And how often do you find that you're sort of almost going, it would be great to be able to hypnotherapy to sort of hit one layer of the subconscious and then also try and access other layers to then try and provide more integration? Is that Is that something that you see much at all, or is it just you'll provide general advice that, it's good to maybe look into these things?
Um, okay, a big question.
Yeah, so
Okay, so it depends what the client wants. Um, because they might come for one thing, but they'll often say to me, and this happens, 90% of the time, I came to address X, but I'm also doing A, B, C, D, E, F. I found that other parts of my life have completely changed as well because I'm feeling calmer, I'm sleeping better, I'm more relaxed, I'm more focused, which means that they can make better choices in life. So, working on that deeper level, even though we've come to address one thing, um, has massive benefits. And for the most part, you asked about meditation. If possible, I always teach people a simple meditation technique. Sometimes they'll say, can we build up on that? Can we do more? And sometimes I'll just keep it at the very basics and say, just try and integrate this practice. It might be a 3-minute practice into the life. Everybody's got 3 minutes. Although, um, amazingly, a lot of people don't seem to, but actually there lies the problem,
mhm.
so, and then going back to yoga, I don't tend to teach my clients any yoga. Yoga is my thing, I love yoga. I love the discipline of it. I love the meditation aspect of it. Each posture can become a meditation in itself because we focus on the breath.
Mm.
We're fully present. Um, and yeah, so I tend to keep that separate from
Well, you do have a
anything.
very lovely voice for all things meditation. Would I be able to tempt you for a 1 minute, 2 minute, three, whatever the shortest one you could do for listeners who would potentially like to implement at least some little mini version of what you've done? And you don't have to either.
No, no,
If you let me
that's absolutely fine. Yeah, yeah, it's second nature. Not easy with a microphone in my hand,
know.
but okay. So
I can
the
close my eyes if it
meditation.
makes you feel more comfortable.
No, wait, is it? Do you want me to do a very short meditation, or do you
Something
want
that,
me to
yeah,
do
basically the
just a relaxation?
I'm happy to leave it up to you. Whatever the listener just might be able to follow along with that you might find just give someone a little insight into a little small thing that might, yeah, provide either relaxation or an insight into meditation, whatever you think might
I
be more
think.
valuable.
Okay, I think with the time frame, 1 or 2 minutes, it's very difficult to do a beneficial relaxation.
Yep.
Um, but if we do a very short meditation, it also feels like you're going into the relaxation.
Yep.
So I'll start with a mindful meditation that I do quite a lot, and sometimes just begin class with.
Yep.
So if we all sat there beginning class, because I think it's very important that you come to the space that you're in, fully present, letting go of the day and the busy chat of the mind. So I would ask people to sit in a comfortable position. Just let the hands lie in the lap or by the sides. And then let the shoulders relax, let the facial muscles soften. And then take a nice full deep breath in through the nose. And then breathe out through the mouth. Perhaps hear the sound of a sigh inside your mind as you let those eyes gently close. And just allow that body to settle and relax just a little bit more. Just let all those little muscles all around the eyes soften and relax. Tongue soft, settling at the bottom of the mouth. And then just notice your experience right now. Just moving your attention from one feeling or sensation to the next, but without judging, without criticizing, just observing, allowing whatever's here to be here right now, without resisting, without rejecting, even if it's unwanted. And then moving your attention up into the mind, and in the same way, just noticing thoughts moving through your mind. And see if you can let those thoughts come and go, like watching thoughts in a vast sky, appearing, floating, dissolving. just experiencing everything with kindness, acceptance. And then bring your attention to the breath. And just watching that gentle flow of the breath, moving into the body and leaving the body. Feeling the fullness of the breath, the movement of the breath, the rhythm, the temperature and the nose on the lips. Experience the breath fully, completely. Even those spaces between the breaths, that stillness and silence. Thoughts might come in, and that's fine. Just move your attention back to your breath, like watching waves in the ocean. The breath's our anchor. At any time we can tune into the breath to bring back calmness, stillness, presence. And then feel the breath filling the whole body, as if the whole body's breathing, being nourished, replenished by oxygen. Not doing anything, not going anywhere, just being with the breath. Finding that stillness within it. So in those moments of stress, instead of doing, thinking, just return to this state of non-doing, of just breathing for a few moments. Allows us to regain calm and clarity and choose our response. So when you're ready to end the practice, bringing all the benefits of it into your day-to-day life, just gently open those eyes, move those fingers and toes all the way back.
Very nice.
That's
It's I'm fortunate that in my early days, a few friends of mine, we all got interested into meditation, and we all read the same book called 10% Happier.
Oh, yes.
And so it was a very nice, gentle introduction, and it wasn't a promise of, being all of a sudden in touch with the divine or anything, but it was just enough curiosity there that we all embarked on it a little bit. And I've gone and done a couple of Vipassana courses, which I found very, very helpful. And for me, at least, every time returning the breath, it's just instantly tingles. It's very nice, very lovely sort of feeling. So it was very nice. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Oh, you're
Hopefully,
welcome.
the
It's a bit
listeners.
fast because obviously I'm very
Yeah,
it's a
but
time constraint. My favourite, very interesting, the Vipassana, and I've read that book. But chanting, I think, is the one that brings the most stillness. Chanting is
really,
amazing for getting that vibration going in the body, and then sitting in that vibration, feeling that depth and stillness of meditation is the one for me.
wow. Okay, is it
Passionate about chanting.
is that just what it's called for someone to look that up? It's just chanting
Well,
meditation.
you'd find, yeah, there's all different types of chanting meditations. My favourite is the Japanese Buddhist one, is Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Done
Yeah.
that many, many times in all sorts of places, but there's lots of different chants you can do. So Transcendental they give you a mantra, and you just recite your same mantra for the rest of your life. But to me, is I don't like eating the same food every day. I don't like doing the same things every day. You wouldn't go to watch the same film all the time. So for me, I like to have different choices of types of meditation. Sometimes you might want to just sit in a peaceful park and focus on your breath and
Mm.
find that stillness. Another time you might want to be sat there and really go into a deep meditation by doing some chanting. So, there's lots of different ways to meditate. Your focus might be different each time, and I love that.
Well,
So,
I think this is one of the still probably less explored and important sort of tools I think that we have that we're just really unaware of. And I certainly felt that having gone through all my schooling years and having left thinking I'm, a very, very smart kid all of a sudden because I've done all this schooling now, and then going through the experience of what meditation and a consistent sort of practice teaches you. To me, at least, it was more informative about like who I am than anything else that I'd sort of learned at that point. And it was almost a shock in a sense that why isn't this just more common knowledge, or why isn't this something that is either taught more or just more readily available to people. And obviously, it's gained plenty of traction, and it still continues to
Yeah,
grow, I'm sure. But it was definitely one of those. I certainly went into it thinking, I have no idea what this is. This is very weird. I don't know if I'm doing it right. Am I? I think when I was younger as well, I used to think like, oh, I'm the best at this. I'm just so good, but still really actually having no clue as to what's sort of going on. And this is why I really like, part of what you're doing as well is it's just we don't realize the power of what's going on in the background underneath the layers of our seemingly conscious thoughts that really have a direct impact on our day to day. And as you said, the ability to respond versus react.
yeah.
It's not.
And create in our lives. We withhold creating what we want because we have a fear of being rejected, ridiculed, failing, and all those other things that are underneath, which is I see a lot of clients for those, procrastinating stops people being successful. So all that is going on underneath. And I think it's really important that we address those things because to me, the biggest, they say meditation is the medication. Totally believe that.
Mm,
If, like you just said, if everybody was taught meditation at school, um, then what a difference it would make to society.
mm,
Have that time to, self-reflection, know yourself better. You know, our our stuff rises when we sit in silence. People don't like to sit in silence because they feel uncomfortable. And the most common thing I heard when I had the meditation group going down the road for 15 years, and the most common thing I'd hear when new people came in is, "I've come to learn to meditate because I've been trying and I just can't do it. I can't stop thinking." And there's this belief out there that somehow you're going to sit with this silence in your head and stop thinking. Well, you'd have to be dead to stop thinking. Even
yeah.
a practice yogi, been doing it for 50 years, they've still got thoughts running through the mind, but they've trained themselves to keep the focus on what they're meditating on. They're aware of the thoughts, but they're more trained to focus on the candle, the nose, the mantra, the breath, whatever, and that's all it is. Practice, practice, practice. And eventually you recognize the thoughts will always be in the background, but you can for longer keep your focus on what you're meditating on. But it takes time and practice,
Mm.
so I would say to people, don't give up, keep practicing, go back to it. No part of the journey is wasted. Pick it up again, and keep going, and you'll enjoy it. You'll get a lot from it.
Particularly now as well, that attention is just, a second at a time
From the
type.
scrolling, the
Yeah.
constant, we're looking for stimulation. My biggest fear is dying. And in that moment, I died, discovering that I had so much potential in my brain and I didn't use it
Mm.
because I didn't know how to tap into it. And what a waste that would be.
Yeah.
Your life's gone and you've never, ever reached a percentage of your proper potential because you just had too much fear or, no belief that you could do anything. And there was too many blockages and stuff in the way. And you never really learned how to access it. So, learn how to access it through meditation, through hypnotherapy, through whatever, you need to do to get yourself there.
Isn't it the quote something about, hell is realizing you never lived up to your potential?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Only a few more questions to go. And one of them was going to be about, you've worked now in this space for, did you say 28 odd years?
Yeah. Coming at 28 years overall. Yeah.
Overall. And so across that time, you've seen countless people. Are there any particular people transformations that stand out to you? You might have already mentioned some of them, but and obviously yourself being a very interesting one as well from the beginning of the caterpillar as well. Are there any particular transformations that stand out to you across your career so far?
um, there's been so many, it's hard to put them all together because clients come back to you over the years for different things. And now, because I've been doing it for so long, I've had clients come and see me and they're bringing the children, which is great, because you've seen them on the whole journey. Um, Gosh, so I'm absolutely rubbish asking for reviews. I never. So my nephew, who's got his own website and everything else, tells me off all the times you never ask for reviews, and reviews to me are like asking for compliments. So only recently I've started asking for reviews because he said you've got to have them.
Mm,
And I've been shocked at what people have, because people have come back to me and I said, oh, but, and they said to me, oh, how much it helped them. And I said, do you mind putting a review one. And so I've actually got some reviews now. And so there's some really transformative things on there, flying heights and anxiety and stress and things like that, and relationship, because I work with a lot of people counselling with relationships, and in hypnotherapy, we see a lot of people for hypnotherapy with relationship issues. Um, but I remember many years ago a lady coming to see me. I sort of did a. It's before we did all the videos and the Zooms and FaceTimes. I almost did a session over the phone just talking to her. I told her to sit down in a chair because she had massive claustrophobia, agoraphobia, agoraphobia, and didn't want to leave the
Just the
house.
fear of going outside.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. And she said a daughter had given birth. A daughter was down south and she needed to get down south, but she couldn't get out of the house and she couldn't get in the car to go. And her daughter wasn't well, so she couldn't come down here with the baby. And so I did about probably 2 half-hour talking, sit yourself in a comfortable place, talk to her while she was listening over the phone. And to me, that's not really, she said she relaxed, but I can't see her.
Yeah.
You're looking for rapid eye movement. And like I say, for the body, the signals in the body. And anyway, then her husband rang me and said, can I have your address? She said, I can bring her to you. And so I saw her then for 2 sessions. And she wasn't working. She hadn't worked for years. And I didn't see her again. And, I was busy, and you don't like chasing people and don't like really following people up
Mm.
because, I think, well, I'll wait and see. She might not, she might have other things going on. And time went on. Anyway, years and years later, a lady came to me and she said, oh, I was really highly recommended by my manager. And I said, oh, do you mind sharing who it was? And she gave me a name. And I thought, oh, that rings a bell. And she said she came 2 years ago because she had agoraphobia. And I said, it was starting to click. And she said, and after she came to see you, she got in the car, she went to see her daughter. Then she went to Australia to see her son. Then she went back to work, and she's a manager now. She's really doing really, really well.
Very, very cool.
I never knew anything about it.
Yeah.
Then there's lots of other things like that. People come back and they'll bring the children, they'll say, you completely changed my life. I couldn't do X, Y, Z, and now I'm doing this, and now I'm doing that. I was having panic attacks. I couldn't go out, or I couldn't go out socially, and now I'm doing X, Y, Z. There was a lady once came to me many years ago as well, and a very common one is fear of vomiting, either
Oh, wow.
themselves or other people. And she built up so much that she actually didn't want to go out anymore, stopped looking after her own grandchildren, and couldn't go to social places on holiday because she said there was vomit everywhere you go. And of course, your focus, your
Yeah.
mind focuses on what it fears. And I never see any when I go out, but everybody said to me they never saw a caterpillar year for year. I saw them nearly every day, and even in the house. So anyway, so we did a couple of sessions, and I didn't feel like we're having much success. She was more relaxed about it and things. But so I said, do you mind if we do some regression? And I very rarely do regression because I don't think we need it. And I said, do you mind if we do some regression? So we went in regression, and she remembered an incident that went back to when she was 2. And this lady was in her 60s. And she went back to when she was 2 in this situation. And we thought it was one situation that was with a sister when her sister was being sick, and it didn't seem to gel. And so we went back, and she recalled this situation when she was traveling and her mother was being sick, and it was this really scary situation. And then she realized when she said, I've never ever remembered that, but I know that I went when I was 2, and mum had been pregnant and was being sick and blah blah blah. And the situation was really scary at the time, and it had come from that. And when we did the work around that, she said to me, um, she started to go out, and she started to see her grandchildren again. And then I bumped into her in Sainsbury's. It must have been about 2 years later, and she went, it's been completely life changing. She said, I walk into public toilets, don't think about it. I've been on holiday. I've been traveling again. I have my grandchildren overnight. I've had them when they've been sick. It's not a problem anymore. So it completely changed her life again,
Mm.
but didn't tell you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this is
Because
a shout out to anyone that Karen has helped. Maybe go and tell her all about it, whether it be
I
review,
don't
email,
ask for
whatever.
reviews, and so,
That's what
but
I'll do it on your behalf. Give Karen, if Karen's helped you, Karen's helped you, give it, send her a review, tell her what happened.
But people often don't come back. They just get on with their lives,
Yeah,
which actually is the best outcome, isn't it?
yeah,
They're busy getting on with their lives. And you really, my passion for doing this is to help people get over what I used to, things like I used to have, get over that and really fulfill what you're supposed to be doing and enjoy your lives, be out there living it, not dealing with the problem, whatever problem it is,
yeah.
making the most of yourself and
It,
being
it,
as healthy as you can. And
it is almost a little shame sometimes to not get the feedback, because it is not only is it a boost, but it's just a reminder of like, this is why we,
it's
this
why
is
we
why you
do
do
it.
it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Yeah,
that is, when they don't come back, you think, well, actually, that's why I'm
it's-
doing it. I
yeah,
just want them to get on with their lives. I just want them to have a great life, not live a small life because of the problem.
yeah.
So,
As I tell all my clients, by the end of this, I want you to fire me as your physio. I don't want you to need me
yeah, the
as an
best. Yeah.
ongoing
When
fashion.
the last session, you often say to people, with the best will in the world, I hope I never see you
Yeah,
again, which is a shame because you work with some really, really,
yeah.
most people are lovely. You work with some lovely people, but yeah.
Is there, for people out there that are interested in what you've talked about, some of the things that you've been doing, are there any particular books or places that you recommend going to learn more about these things, some of these techniques, whether it be hypnotherapy or meditation or yoga? Are there any books in particular that really helped direct what you do in life that you recommend?
Okay, wasn't expecting that one, and off the top of my head, I'm going to struggle. But what I didn't mention in all this is that with the first guy I trained with, I actually went to London and trained as a trainer. So I've trained lots of people to be hypnotherapists over the
Oh wow.
years. Yeah, so my certificate is up there. I am a trainer. Don't do it anymore. I will do one-to-one trainings with people. I have done lots of one-to-ones, but I don't do groups anymore because it's a different skill these days with marketing and social media and everything else. Um, so I have trained lots of people. There's lots of books I would recommend. And I think Hammond is a great one up there. Dave Ellman is a good one as well. I'm trying to think of other ones that
And
I'm
it's always
missing.
hard putting you on the spot
It
as
is
well.
with books because I am an avid reader, but it's book club tonight, and I've got 5 books on the go at the moment. And I've always got a therapy book alongside that I'm reading. But
Because one of the books that I've just been reading as well is the Body Leaves the Scar. No, oh my god, is that the name of the book?
the body leaves a scar.
Uh, I'm totally
No,
butchering that.
it is. I know which one you mean. I've got it upstairs. The body. Oh God. Anybody listening to this now
But
shouting it out?
yeah, I
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
believe it. I'm literally
Stick
reading.
to it. It was
Yeah,
it's with starch. It'll come to me. I've got it upstairs actually.
which is part of the reason why I actually reached out to you, because it mentioned hypnotherapy through it, and with the work that I do on fascia, and some of the work that I now do with a system called Square One. You're essentially trying to test the nervous system and get it
Yeah.
to reset, and you actually use eye movement to do with
The
it.
EMDR.
It's not
Yeah.
quite that, but
Oh right. Okay. Yeah.
it does. That's where I'm interested. It's sort of, you're seeing these slow intersections of
Yeah.
different modalities, and how they're potentially all kind of driving at very similar things. But this book was quite good at laying out the fact that some people that have more of a
The
dissociative,
body keeps score.
the body keeps the
Yeah.
score. Thank you. God, that would have killed us. But it's yeah, it's very good at
Yes.
describing,
Yeah.
or I think giving an insight to some people that when they don't understand that they've got a certain reaction, and this is largely a book about trauma, particularly childhood
Yeah.
trauma, and what that sort of effect looks like. But I mean, I'm sure there's lots of information out there about it. But so far it's been a really good insight for when people tell me, I start getting into an argument with you, and it's just like my brain shuts down, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like I can't, words just can't come anymore. And this book at least gives you an insight as to like, well, there's probably like a legitimate physiological thing going
Yes.
on.
Yes. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
there's also likely things that might benefit you, but that would be different to someone that has a different response, very
Yeah.
externalized response as well. So, yeah, I thought that would be that was partly the
But
reason why I reached
that
out.
is one of the books. I mean, I've got so many
Mm.
books and I read so many. It's hard to think on the spot. But
Yeah, sorry to
um,
do that to
no, it's fine.
you.
But Body Keeps Score is one of the books I would recommend. Um, but you're absolutely right because, and when we use hypnosis, you switch from fight to flight because we're calming down the nervous system, we're switching from fight or flight to rest and restore. And that means that the mind's calmer, the body's quieter, and we've got more clarity, more creativity. We can reach into our capabilities and capacities that we don't believe, or we feel that we've left behind somewhere that we don't believe we have. So, um, yeah, I think all those things are really, really useful, whether it's from past trauma or just habits created or behaviours that have built up over time. It can be anything that creates a problem.
Literally, last little bit is: do you see hypnotherapy, is the profession and the understanding of it, is it ever growing? Are things changing? Do you see a certain future happening within it, or is it sort of this? Is it a very sort of slow process that you yourself are seeing that the profession is going through? If it's moving at all, do you see it changing quite a bit over time?
Yeah, when I started, there were, I mean, there were a lot of hypnotherapists, but there were nowhere near as many as they are now.
Mm.
And I think part of that is because the trainings become, because of online classes, the trainings become more accessible. The problem with that is that I don't think it's something that you should do online. I think you need to be with clients and be guided through it because of the trauma that can be underneath the problem. I think I know people who've just done, a 1 day class or, you know, 5 hours training of videos online and they call themselves a hypnotherapist. It's dangerous.
Mm.
Um, it's good to have also some counselling because a lot of people also need some counselling skills to come in because if they've got a problem, if they've got trauma and you're not qualified or trained to deal with that or done any psychotherapy, then you can't just suggest to them that they can suddenly switch the thinking and they're going to be okay.
You
You
can
know,
make things worse.
make things worse. Yeah, yeah. So I think you have to tread very carefully, and I think training should be monitored and it should be more intensive than it is. And not have these short trainings. Some of them, there's some brilliant training companies out there, but there's also a lot of online short courses, and I think they're very harmful. And so it's not regulated, and that's the problem.
Something to
But I
watch
think
out
it's,
for.
yeah, and but I think it has grown. There's so many now people that do hypnotherapy. A lot of people train for it and then don't continue to do it because they can't make a business out of it.
Mm.
But um, I think it's too easy accessible because of the online stuff.
Do you also see, is there any movement of, I'm seeing occasionally papers going out with, MDMA assisted therapies of some kind and psilocybin or psychedelic assisted therapies,
Rubbish.
including, do you see anything like that coming into that domain of hypnotherapy, or is that anything that's on the radar or
Not in
even?
this country.
Mm,
Um, I wish there was more, we were allowed to use more things. I think wish more things were available. I don't know whether I'm actually allowed to say this, but yeah, I think a lot of things have the place, and legally we're not allowed,
mm,
to use them. Um, Obviously, and as I'm not a doctor, I can't diagnose people. I shouldn't influence them medically.
mm.
I always say to people, go and check with your doctor first. But I do think there are other things out there that could be used that aren't used, and that would be helpful if they were.
Okay.
It would. I think there's a lot of things that support the different modalities, and if we use them in conjunction with each other, then we've got more progress, faster progress, haven't we?
Mm.
It doesn't have to be an invasive process, but I think a lot of things support each other.
Yeah, it's just as you say, ideally about having at least some level of credibility and someone that's,
Yeah. Experience counts for a lot.
mm,
A lot of people go into counseling and hypnotherapy when they're, say, in the 20s, and actually they don't have enough life experience. They've not been through a lot of the things that people that will come to with the problems. They might have experience of some of the younger people's problems. Um, for example, was I recently I came off my HRT for a while and really, really struggled and went back on it. And it was worrying me. And I thought, my insurance gives me access to some counselling sessions. I thought, I just want to talk through it, not go back to the doctors again and get some medical advice. I just want to talk about my stuff rather than with my friend or my partner stuff. So I made an appointment, and 3 times there were young girls. One of them was 22. I mean, you know, why am I at my
I
age going to sit and chat with a 22-year-old about
suppose
something
that's
like that
possible. Yeah.
when, and maybe it's other problems to do with the menopause that somebody had no experience of, or a divorce or something like that. I think you have to have a certain element of experience as a therapist to be able to sit comfortably with your clients and really, empathize with what they're going through, because you've been through stuff, you know. So I think experience is also important. And the main quality I think you need as a therapist of any kind is non-judgment, you know, not to judge people, because until you've walked in their shoes, even if you've had a similar problem, if you've not had the background or experience or upbringing, don't judge people.
Mm. On that final note, is there any final message you'd like to leave with the listeners, whether it be simply just about hypnotherapy itself, or whether it about be things that they might sort of do to help themselves if they're feeling that this is something that might be helpful for them, or that they're dealing with something that they think, yeah, maybe I should sort this out. Do you have any final words that you'd like to leave with everyone?
Yeah, I think that if it's, like I said before, if it's bothering you to a degree where it's on your mind a lot, or it's causing you a problem in your day to day life, then address it, because it probably can be sorted out and make your life much easier. And you could ask yourself, who would I be without this problem? What would I be doing? What would I be thinking? How would I be experiencing myself and life? What would you be feeling? So asking yourself those things, if without that problem you'd be doing so much more and or feeling so much better, then that's a signal to address it. And I think hypnotherapy is a fantastic avenue. It's safe. You're always in control. There's so many benefits over and above the thing that you've come for. You'll find that you're much more relaxed. You're much more calm. You're much more positive. People sleep better, um, regardless of what they came for. So there's so many benefits for doing it. Just go and do it, and you've always got your programs. Hopefully, if somebody records, always got your program support you ongoing. You know, it's never a waste of your time to go and address a problem.
All right. Thank you so much, Karen. Appreciate your time. It's been awesome. Hopefully we'll talk. I'm going back to Australia, so I don't know if it'll be anytime soon, but hopefully it'll be in short order. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.